In the last video we had a go at rendering this sphere, and I believe I said to you that I'm going to rub out my pencil mark that I have here that sort of indicates the light. So I'm going to do that now. Sometimes as well, actually, by rubbing things out or putting a rubber over them, you can create that light and shade effect. And equally, I could start to rub out the pencil marks over my marker if I felt I've gone too far. Now, sometimes as well, you can hit this with, like say for example, I'm going to just make that a little bit darker around here. Tiniest bit darker. It's very subtle. I'm not sure if you can see the difference, but I can from here. And that part there is where the light is hitting it and creating that shine. Sometimes you can drop in something from a Tipp-Ex marker to just give that like that dot of light. Now, in this video, we're going to have a go at rendering the cylinder. So before I render it, I'm aware that the blue background has bled into it somewhat. I'm not overly concerned about that. There's plenty of things I can do to negate that or take it back into the background so you wouldn't really notice it. But the first thing I'm going to do is, we're estimating the light is sort of coming in at that direction. If we imagine, our light source is like that, something like that. We know that the light is probably going to hit it on that side, on the right hand side of the sphere. So we're going to get a decent sized shine there. So I'm just going to go ahead and start blocking in where that might be or how that might be. So I'm going to block that in like that. So I have some idea of where my shine is going to be. It's going to be roughly about there. It could even come over a little bit more, but often there will be a dark piece right at the very edge. You'll find too that there'll be a certain amount of reflection on the other side, and this gives the look that the sphere is actually a sphere, has a dimension, has a kind of a rounded shape. Okay, so I'm just going to put that in there. I mean, again, it's not perfect as I start off. I'm always building a picture of it. Sometimes you have sort of lines of colour moving up and down a sphere too. So I'm just putting that in just to give myself a sense of the volume of the sphere. So I think I am going to render this in maybe a pinkish colour. Maybe sort of a pinkish orangish colour with hints of purple. So I'm going to use this kind of a palette. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to block in the lightest colour. I just want to see what this looks like. Oh yeah, that'll do. Now, I know that the light is hitting the sphere here, so I'm going to leave that white. I'm going to leave this one white as well because there's always an element of reflection, and this helps to give the sphere its three-dimensional look. So I'm going to leave those white as well. Mm. Now I just want to go across the top as well here. And across the bottom like that. Okay, now that's a very light colour. So I want to let that dry, but as I'm letting it dry, I'm sort of going to estimate where I reckon the light and shade is, and I'm going to see roughly, what colours these pencils are. Okay, so I'm gonna, okay, might need to be a little bit darker there. If I'm looking at, bringing a little bit of shading up there, and the colours might need to be a little darker, so I'm gonna have to see what I have in that regard. Yeah. So at the beginning it's always trial and error as you're trying to achieve, the colours. If you can imagine, the colours in your colour scheme and trying to put them together and achieve the three-dimensional visual, or indeed you're rendering your floor plans and your elevations. Sometimes actually when you've chosen your colour schemes and your textures and so on, when you produce your rendered drawings, you realise that something is amiss. So it's not only for representation, it's also to kind of fine-tune your design in the end and alter those, you know, small bits in the end which make all the difference. I'm going to have a look at this. Yeah, that might do it too. Maybe not quite dark enough. Oh dear, broken pencil again. Now, so this is slightly different from the sphere because it has a long but curved shape. So while I would render the sphere according to its shape, this is more kind of an up and down scenario. Okay, so now I'm just going to start to apply the shading here. And I would reckon there's quite a bit of shade there too, as the sphere moves back around where the light isn't hitting it. Same on this side. And there will be a certain amount of shading coming up from the ground as well. And as it sits kind of behind that, there'll be a certain amount of shading there. Okay, so I'm looking at that now, wondering, is there anything that I can do maybe with a marker? Let's have a look and see. Ooh, that's very dark. That could be good. Okay. So I'm building that up over the pink colour. And I reckon this colour is going to be, it's going to be a little bit darker here. Yeah. And I'm bringing the shade up from the bottom. Same on that side as well. Now I still feel that that could be a little darker. This part here. I'm going to have a go over it with another pencil just to see. Yeah, that's the ticket, I think. And funny, it's a very similar colour to the floor. Now equally you could block that in marker. Now that'll probably run the whole way to the top as well, this darker colour. Now I want to have a look at the bleed here. So let's have a look at that and let's see how this colour goes over it. and that's okay. I think that will work there. That will be a lighter colour and that's a darker colour there. So although you can see it starting to blend into the background, there are certain things you can do just to take it out. Now this is like a pastel pencil, so it's almost like a white pastel. So if I hit that with that, it should take it out, take out the very dark blue. Same on this side. See, I've already gone over that with a pencil, so it's not taking it so well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rub that out. So there's no pencil on it at all. And then I'm going to have another go with this. Sometimes if you go over too many times, even with the rubber, it just doesn't take it that well. Yeah, that's happening now. Let me see what I can do with the lightest pencil that I have. I'm going to use the very light blue and just go over it like that. Okay. Another thing I wanted to just point out is that when I'm rendering, my hand is always on the page. It's always flat to the page, so I almost have, I'm just going to take this away now for a minute, I almost have like a fulcrum, so you can see that. So I'm using my elbow, and there I'm pivoting on my wrist, and equally if I was drawing something very big I'd be using my shoulder. So you're using the joints in your body as you're drawing. That's worth saying. You might notice that as you start off. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a little bit of contrast in the background there, just to see if it'll just negate that bit of bleeding there. Yeah, it does a bit. Okay, I'm still not happy that that's not dark enough. I just want to have a look at this colour. Yeah, that's the job, I think. So I'm going to build this up again using that colour. You see the intensity of colour the marker gives is very hard to beat. You will rarely achieve it in pencil, and that's really why you need the combination of both. So in many ways it's a trial and error process to get it right. Now I'm just going to estimate the little bit of shade coming from this as well, and it'll most likely be in the same or similar direction as the sphere, because the light is coming from the same source. The sphere is bigger, so it's going to cast maybe a longer shadow. Okay, so again I'm just going to go over that with the pencil just to give the idea. And then I'm going to hit this at the bottom just to offer that contrast again. Okay, so that's your sphere. In the next video we'll have a go at the cone.